Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And I guess I wanted to just acknowledge some things that maybe this entire time even were fairly evident, probably to a lot of viewers, but in my mind, it was like not really some things that I was really processing particularly well. Um, but it has come to my attention, and I guess really, I don't know why this is like a recent thing that's just dawning on me since doing this show. But for some reason it is. It's just dawning on me now for whatever reason. Um, and basically, it's just this fact of other people and really like the average person. And you have to remember, too, when I say the average person, there's also a significant amount of people that fall below average, too. Um, there are just giant swaths of people who they're just completely like not even remotely ready for most of the topics I talk about. And so it's kind of sad because like I've been saying the things I say on this show and I've been having deeper conversations with people for a long time. And for some reason, I guess it just never really dawned on me for whatever reason. Again, I'm not really too sure why because now, like, again, in retrospect, it's like kind of obvious now that I've seen, like, you just go in a Discord server, like a regular, more laid back social one, for even just a short period of time, and you observe the way people communicate, observe how people communicate, the topics that they talk about, and it's just like if I were to assert and say half the things that I say, I mean, it's just out of people's scope, and I don't really know how to say it, without sounding arrogant or sounding like I'm talking down, because that's not, like, I don't want to do that, but I don't really know how else to describe it. It's like a little bit unsettling for me to and it I mean it makes sense. I've known that I've had to mask when I socialize, but I just think like really taking the time, spending more time around people, spending more time just around like, average everyday people in particular, and also just doing this show and just talking things through and processing things and going through different experiences with others. I mean, I think after a while, you do gain, you obtain this residual understanding of, over time, there's a residual buildup of things. So, it's not all at once, but it's like over time, you kind of learn and you learn and you learn. And for some reason, again, I think I've always missed it. I always like see the best in people. I always kind of have this like glimmer over things. And I just notice that more often than not, it's just incredibly inaccurate. It's just not a very accurate way of operating. Like, I don't know, a lot of times people do have a very low bar, like the low or the bare minimum expectation for like an average human. It's a low bar. It's a very very low bar, you know. A lot of people, they're very casual. For example, I mean, and really you notice it with a sleep schedule. I think you can know a lot about a person from their sleep schedule, right? And I think, because again, I want to try to be careful with my wording here because I don't want to come across a certain way, but I mean, it just might be unavoidable, you know? It may be unavoidable given the context. I'm not entirely sure. But, essentially, we're well aware how awful a bad sleep schedule is. I think most people probably don't know the extent of how horrible it is. Like, they're probably unaware of the extent. And, or, the other problem is they just can't, like, do anything about it and they can't really help themselves. I mean, it's a genuine predicament that occurs. Like, I'm sure, and I kind of talked about it before, where it's like, if somebody's lazy, of course, nobody wants to be lazy. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if I could be reborn in a new body that just isn't phased by work and just really wants to do the right thing and wants to work hard, wants to work extra jobs, and my brain is capable of handling that, then that's great. I mean, nobody should want to be lazy. I know I mentioned this already, but I'm re-mentioning it because I believe there's relevance to what I'm about to say, because it's the same thing with a poor sleep schedule. It's not anything that anybody asks for. However, it's just kind of a side effect of modern environments, right? And we kind of did touch upon it the last time we were talking about this. We did. I mean, the truth is that a modern household, I mean, the ideal setup is your bedroom is a room dedicated for sleeping. It's an area, really the entire room is entirely dedicated to sleeping. And basically, nobody has that anymore. I mean, of course I did and I don't. I still don't achieve that, like, ideal setup. I think, I mean, really, there's probably a very, very few amount of people who do, you know? And we get wrapped up in just having horrible environments, you know? But a lot of it, again, it's like, it really is, how in control are we? Like, is it really our job or our responsibility to just say, like, well, it's all willpower, and you just have to muscle through it, and you need willpower and you need self-control. And I just don't understand how that, like, makes any sense. I mean, we know the potency of modern technology. We know the potency of just even a smartphone. The technology in there, it's very capable, and the stimulation and the addictive nature, the potency of it is so high. It's difficult for people to sleep. Not to mention, I think an additional and large factor is different nutritional deficiencies. So, in my case, even though my sleep schedule isn't as amazing, like, I mean, there was a time my sleep schedule was basically perfect, right? I've been lazy. It's not perfect, but I'm still probably in the 90th percentile for people my age, like, easily. Because it's almost like all I see, all I hear people talking about is how their sleep is, like, horrible. I mean, I don't really hear about anybody who, like, sleeps well. And so in my case, there's just a few basic things that I would credit that to. It's my semi carnivorous, high fat beef plus cheese diet. Even though there's obvious debate about that, the at the end of the day, there is evidence that a higher fat diet it it promotes healthier hormones, or more hormones, or right, so melatonin, for example. My circadian rhythm, pretty decent. I do walk outside during the day, even though my job doesn't have any windows. um, During the day, again, 3 20-minute segments, one around like late morning, one around the afternoon, and one around like the late afternoon as the sun's setting. Probably, loosely like that, spaced out pretty evenly. So, going outside, walking consistently, seeing the sun consistently. When I drive home from work, seeing the moon, seeing that it's nighttime consistently. Visually walking, and just walking, no heavy exertion. But I would hypothesize, without double checking by looking it up, that even just the 3 miles of active walking I do plus additional movement, like I probably hit about 5 miles in total, because I do more walking than that, but I hit like, the floor is 3 miles, right? That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, because those 20 minutes end up being a little over a mile. It's probably more like 3.5 miles. Um, and that's not like the best or the perfect, but yeah, I mean, these are simple routines. Oh, also B12, ample B12 from the beef, B12 being a precursor to melatonin. These are all nutrients and things that a lot of people just don't get. I mean, I've known so many people where they struggle with sleep, and it's like, I mean, I know it's a lifestyle thing, but I do believe the nutrition is a part of that. I mean, it just is. But in addition, I mean, a lot of people's modern life, it is just stressful, and in addition to like dopamine addictions and technology keeping them up, there is also like some stress to that. Some people have stressful lifestyles, and that makes it difficult to sleep better. Bottom line is, though, it's truly wrecking havoc on people, and it's very dangerous. The long-term ramifications of this are significant. They're severe, and I don't really think enough is being done about it. Now, I think a lot of people know that a poor sleep schedule is bad. I don't think they're really aware of the gravity. I think people kind of, yeah, they know it's bad, but they'd probably rather not know how bad it is, just because, again, I just think for a lot of people it's like out of reach. It's just totally, it's not even really a consideration. It's just like completely out of reach. It's unobtainable. And I do want to mention, and I want to add, there has to also be a genetic component to it. In my case, I think I have very good sleep genes. Now, my mom said when I was a baby, I slept the best out of any of her children. The other kids would wake up crying a lot, or just all kinds of craziness. But for me, when it was nighttime and I needed to sleep, I slept. And when it was nap time, I would always take my nap, and not there really wasn't much of a concern. But the other babies that she had, my siblings, there would there there would be a lot of, screaming and crying, and so that is kind of a strange, even from birth. So I feel like that shows a genetic foundation, and there's obviously a genetic advantage. I used to have a horrible sleep schedule during my kind of rough arc when I was still like, 17, got out of school early because of COVID, really allowed to be a child. I had this idea called the progressive sleep cycle, which is that each night you just go to bed an hour later so that you can fall asleep really easily, you know? And at the time I thought it's kind of a joke idea. I mean, I wasn't serious. I figured it was probably bad back then. But yeah, it's but I was kind of joking about it, and I did that to some extent. So like every night I'd probably just push it by 2 hours, and then for a few days, or basically like a week, I'd be like semi-nocturnal. You know what I mean? Um, I had a horrible sleep schedule. I mean, I was like nocturnal, then I'd be not nocturnal. I mean, my sleep was just like randomly take a nap, randomly wake up again, go on my computer, right? Like just like a ton of craziness. Horrible sleep schedule. Probably worse too, or similar to a lot of people's. Because yeah, like I said, it's like okay, I go to bed, but then I wake up and go on my computer more, and then I go back to bed. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I eventually tried to fix it, but after a few months, I would go back to like a messy sleep schedule. Then there was a time I wanted to really try to transcend sleep, and I was kind of manic, and like I really, and I still feel this way. I wish I didn't have to sleep. If there was one superpower I could have, it would just be that I didn't need to sleep. That would be amazing. I don't know. Um, I don't have that superpower, sadly, but I really, before I knew a lot of the science about it, I was really trying to condition myself for that. And then when I was manic, or again, since I'm not diagnosed, I'll say allegedly manic, but it's like the symptoms were like really, it's like, I'm not diagnosed, but really, right? And so the main during the mania, I was able to sleep very little and still be going on my like 10-mile walks and things like that. I mean, actually, it was some interesting experimentation because I would fast. And so I would eat, like, I would fast. I'd eat every other day, and I'd eat like a giant meal every other day. And that routine mentally was, I think it was actually mentally beneficial. Um and it felt good. It felt good. And it was meant, I mean, those nights where it's like you're fasting, is it's good. I actually do think, I think the nights I would fast, I wouldn't really need to sleep that much. And um again, I mean, the problem is it's a discipline. Now, I already have more food discipline than pretty much anybody I know. I eat 2 meals a day, and I never have any snacks or any drinks, just water. So that's already like fairly disciplined eating. It's fairly indulgent, High fat ground beef isn't that indulgent, but it's semi indulgent. And then, the Romano cheese is pretty indulgent. But I do eat it refrigerated. I don't heat it up in a microwave. So there's sort of I feel like there's a monastic nature to that, you know? There's a bit of monasticism in there. I don't season it besides some salt, because the Romano cheese already has a good amount of sodium. But yeah, I mean, this is legit. this is really legit, you know? And sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was just on autopilot. I don't really remember what I was talking about. Why was I talking about my diet? Wow, this is embarrassing. Um, well, it's hopefully I get plenty of practice to have these moments before I'm a live streamer. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm talking about. Oh yeah, okay. Sleep genetics, the way I've always been, the way I'm wired, my lifestyle, my routine, how I think it adds to better sleep. But I used to have terrible sleep, yes. And then the thing about the manic episodes where, yeah, it's like every other day I would eat food and I would have this like giant meal. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. And but they're really, I mean, fasting, because I already do kind of fast. I mean, you could make the argument. My last meal is at like 1 p.m., and then I go to bed at like 8 or 9. So it's pretty aggressive, but I've heard there's just so many good health benefits to that, and I feel it. I mean, the nights I do end up having food, towards, but if it's like a party, or obviously occasionally life, like other people want to go out to eat or something, or you have like, you know I notice it. I notice that my sleep's worse. I notice it's harder to get to sleep. So you can't even imagine like what a lot of people do, and it's, I mean, really, it's really something, like I just, and a lot of people, it's poor education, it's poor structure, it's like a lot of things. But again, I think people, they don't really want to know the weight or the gravity to how bad a terrible sleep is. I certainly didn't. you know I really wanted to transcend it. I've always been very uncomfortable around the idea of sleep. I don't like it. It's like there's so much more that the human could do without sleep. I mean, we would be like higher versions of ourselves. We'd essentially be 30 something percent more of who we are than who we are, right? And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always just wanted to transcend that. And really, the same with food. The same goes for food. It's, when we have to eat, the amount of money that it ends up costing, and the amount of time it takes. I mean, and of course, people make food like a part of their character and a part of their personality. Of course, for me, that is the case. But if nobody had to eat food, me included, our personality would just be further. There would be some, that time would obviously be replaced with something else. Um, but again, I mean, part of the problem too is like we already have an excessive amount of free time, and people don't really know what to do with it. So, and it's funny because we're actually reaching a point though where free time is beginning to become more limited again. Like because of the nature of how strict society is getting, um, we're kind of reaching that point where it's just like people have to work two jobs. People have to, like, there's a lot of people that just don't really have that much free time at all. And it's really, I don't really know. Like people really don't have the free time that you think they would. But what's worse is that it's like we have all this extra free time, and it could really be used for a lot of higher level thought, introspective conversations, being able to understand other people in much better ways. And instead, I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth. Instead, it's like, yeah, we have a lot of extra free time, but it's just like spent playing video games. It's just spent on social media. And I think it's very hard to justify that. I do. I think that like for most people, and it's hard because our joys and our pleasures, they shape us so much, but there almost has to be like a hedonistic limiter to some of these video games or hobbies. It's kind of complex to think about, but there's certain things that humans, broadly speaking, would probably be better without. I mean, TikTok is an obvious example of one. Um, but again, you have to handle the issue carefully because people are fundamentally different and have fundamentally different personalities as a result of mediums like TikTok existing. And you don't really want to, well, it's like, well, do you want to see just how far humans will go? Do we want to see the limit? I kind of do, but then you look at like the host of horrible effects it has on people, and then you're kind of like, yeah, maybe there should be some restrictions. Maybe the nature of short form content has to be more productive or more educational. I think what the way and the problem, I did think this earlier in the day, the problem is not restricting an individual's freedom. It's restricting our environments. Like, our environments cannot be built for failure because that's literally how it is nowadays. I mean, you are built to fail if you're growing up nowadays. The only way you're not is if you're very intelligent, you have a ton of willpower, and you're just able to navigate the chaos and the storm and use the internet to learn things. You come from a family that has some generational wealth. I mean, you don't need a lot, but even if your parents just like own a home and just like work a normal job, like if they own their home outright, work a normal job, and provide you like obviously more free time than like the median person, you couple that with the other thing I just mentioned, and you basically end up with an ability to succeed nowadays. But that's not really that many people, and we have to be honest about that as a society. This environment is built for people to fail. It just is. With all the crazy advertising, the addictive nature of the internet, with causing us to spend more money on things, causing us to be animals, quite frankly. There is something structurally wrong, and I don't think that it's entirely people's fault. Of course, you can't say people are innocent. We have low willpower. We fall for these addictions, but there is something so evil about things being structurally set up for failure. I think there's something so evil about that. Um, and we really could, I think potentially humanity could be better off just if more things were explicit and more things were obvious, and we really tried to just set things up better. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I say, like, let's not restrict the autonomy of people. Let's restrict the autonomy of society. Maybe that's the point. Maybe my theories about a loss of autonomy in the future won't really be a loss of individual autonomy, but it'll be a loss of environmental autonomy. So, trying to control environments and structures for the better, as opposed to directly trying to control people. Because I still think that with a good nurture, with a good environment, that could really go a long way. And we just have such the opposite right now. There's a lot of bright people. There's a lot of people who are wise and who are smart, but they're really drained. They can't sleep. They're a mess. And so to me that is it we mostly are dealing with an issue of nurture, not just nature. And maybe that is the error in my prophecy. Maybe it's like at some point in the extreme far future, I still do kind of think there could be a semi loss of autonomy where there starts to be clearer rules or clearer punishments about, hey, like if you don't put in the effort to eat right or exercise, like there could be a punishment for that. We don't need a wide spectrum of individuality that includes negative traits. Like, let's try to, but maybe before that, the obvious step is just, I mean, you can give people freedom, but set up a system where structurally things are better. You set up environments for people that are designed for flourishing, not for death, basically, like not for failure. I mean, really, there's certain things like banning a lottery, banning um, profit from credit cards. There's all these kind of easy, just boom, boom, like let's get rid of these structural problems. And yeah, I mean, even broadly speaking, getting rid of gambling, or maybe setting it up so that if somebody has an addiction, they're restricted. But, if somebody doesn't, maybe, yeah, maybe it's fine for some casual gambling, something. There has to be something because it's just, it's not good. I don't think it's good that society can sleep at night knowing that there's lots of people in poverty blowing a bunch of money on lottery tickets, perpetuating their problems, blowing a bunch of money at the casino, perpetuating their problems, and then that money gets funneled upwards. I mean, it just, I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, in the case of the lottery, I guess it is a little more productive because it's essentially just a higher tax on poor people, but it's still it's still greasy. Like it's not it's not ethical. It's definitely not the most ethical tax, but at least casinos just for profit. I guess you know. But yeah, I think that's really where you start is let's reduce structural autonomy. People can still have the freedom to do what they want, but let's make it so in the food stores there's only good food. So it's like, well, you can't, right? Like I mean, what do you say? Like, is the GPT, is this a gentler, easier concept, is to try to have things structurally semi-autonomous? I'm not going ahead and going as extreme as before as saying to have a semi-seizure of personal autonomy, but how about structural autonomy? Is there any moral qualms with that in terms of, what do we allow to be had as a business? What are businesses that are conducive to a good culture and a good society versus what are cultures that, I mean, what are businesses that objectively hurt people? Because of course, there are some ways where it can get a little political in terms of like, well, what is actually a good business versus what isn't. And I'm not really trying to say that. I'm saying if you look at the things that are objective, if you look at stuff where it's black and white, this business really should not be allowed to persist the way it does. Is that okay? Because I'm not trampling on people's freedom. I'm trampling on the system's freedom. And maybe that's really what I was supposed to outline and come to the conclusion of all along, because really that's how I think anyway. I've always thought in this bigger type of way, and yeah, I just don't know, right? It's like, wonder what the answer to all that is. Could be I could be onto something, or maybe GPT is still going to say there's some issues with that, but I mean, come on. Let's start trying to do like the right thing. That's what I really believe in. Let's really try to start steering the ship in the right direction, because it's still going in the wrong direction. And again, I've theorized this, and I think I'm going to be vindicated. Um, if you don't start gently nudging people now, even if it's frustrating for people, some big thing is going to happen, whether it's a pandemic, or it's some kind of climate catastrophe, or I mean there's a lot of things that could happen, a major economic collapse. If people are not ready, it's going to be a lot of pain. And I know, it kind of seems like GPT is like, well, I get what you're saying, but we can't seize autonomy. We have to give people freedom. So, and then it's like you go back and forth, and then no clear answer is brought about, and then we don't really get anywhere. We don't really do anything, and then it's like, okay, like a couple more years went by, the trajectory's still headed south. When is the ship going to get steered? When are we really going to see a change for the better? Anyways, it's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see you schla.